Okay, here we go. Yeah, right here. This is great. Okay, so with me, thank you Founders Fund, first of all, for putting, Founder Made, sorry, for putting everything together, because this really is a dream come true, because I've been able to merge two of my favorite things, which are logistics and my pets. Well, actually my cat, because joining me on stage, we have Brett Tepper, the co-founder of ModCat. And I don't know if any of you here are cat fans or have a cat, but ModCat is the best in the business when it comes to cat litter boxes. It saved my relationship, so thank you. Thank you for being here. 15 year in the e-commerce business, so we'll be diving in on a lot of logistics with Brett. And then I'm also joined with Rich Brewer, one of our great customers and product managers that comes from boutique brands. So Rich, you're kind of a last minute, so we thank you for coming, but you manage 3 $20 million brands, is that correct?
So we are an umbrella company for 4 different fashion boutique brands, strictly e-commerce brands. 3 of these brands are Shopify brands and are running some pretty advanced technology through ShipHero, which is part of the reason why I'm here. But 4 women's clothing, boutique fashion e-commerce brands.
Excellent. So what's going to be fun about this conversation when we talk about the rising costs in fulfillment is that we have someone who's outsourced and someone who still does insourcing when it comes to fulfillment. So we're going to get a little bit of each, which I think is going to be most helpful to everyone in the room. So let's start with you, Brett. So 15 years of e-commerce. What brought you to e-commerce? Why get into it? And why cats?
Well, that's a good question. So I started out, I studied industrial design and graduated in '94, which put me right in the web market. You know, that's when the internet was just taking off. So I ended up designing websites and designing and developing websites for about 15 years. And then we did one big project for, it was a Walmart collaboration that took us to Asia, and we met with a bunch of factories, and we became buyers for some time, and it was a very strange experience that I could talk about all night, but I'll move on from that. But so then we, one day my business partner, he had 2 cats, and his wife was pregnant, couldn't tend to the litter box anymore, and he took it over. And he was horrified by the litter box. You know, we had a graphic design business, so being a designer, he was just like, this is not happening. So he's very intense, and he did a search all night for a new litter box and came up empty-handed. And the next morning, he came in with this idea, and I had been itching to do some product design since that's what I had studied. And we ended up doing some sketches, and we eventually reached out to a couple of the manufacturers we had met while we were working with Walmart. And it turned out that the translator that we had during the Walmart project was Taiwanese, and we ended up flying out and visiting him, and he had the first prototypes for us. And that's it. We're still working with that same manufacturer, and yeah, here we are.
I love that. I love that. And were you Shopify store 276?
Yeah, I believe it was 276.
So we have an OG. That's like real OG in my.
Yeah. So you know, when I started looking, you know, originally I was thinking I'm going to have to build it because nothing like that existed before. So we were looking at Drupal and a few other things that existed back then. You could take components and kind of piecemeal and. You know, so I had a few developers lined up, and then one of the developers said, "Have you heard of Shopify?" Yeah. And so I started looking into it, and I was like, "This is it." And yeah, so we've been with it since.
I love that. That's so good.
And there was a stint where one of our marketing people had convinced us that we had to switch to Magento, and that was a horrific event for us. And we wasted like $30,000 and ended up going back a few months later.
We've all made that mistake,
so yeah,
it's okay. Excellent. So I want to go into the last 3 years have been so volatile when it comes to inbounding with freight and the costs just exploding. So take me to the ModCat situation room. It's freight's coming in, all of a sudden you get a new bill and they say it's not going to be X, it's going to be Y.
Yeah.
Talk about that delta and what your team did to not have customer experience suffer or just increase prices 5x? Like, how did you do it?
Yeah, so when you say team, it's kind of funny because it's me and my business partner, and then we have 3 customer support people. And so it's a very small team, and me and my partner are making all these decisions basically on the fly. And we just were so excited at that time because the pandemic was awful for everybody, but business-wise, we were doing so well. We couldn't believe the elevation in sales at that point. And then we were like, something's got to give. And then we started getting hit with freight bills. And we went from like $6,000 a container to, over time it started going up to 12 and then 18 and then eventually ended up at like 32, I think, at its apex. And so we had to make some serious decisions. And then, we've got one set of containers that comes from China that we do very small production in China. And those have the 25% tax on top of them as well. So we had to adjust pricing across the board. The first thing we did was get rid of free shipping. That was the easiest sort of low-hanging fruit. And then we slowly escalated pricing, and we've had to kind of consistently do that up until about 2 months ago.
Got it. And so for everyone to kind of level set, you have about 15 SKUs. Some
Core
of them
SKUs.
Core SKUs.
Yeah.
And most of it is one-time purchase, but then there's the repeat. So when it came to increasing costs, what did you? So you have to increase one.
Yeah.
What was kind of the analysis there?
We have 4 litter boxes as sort of our primary set of SKUs, and we increased the pricing mostly on the higher end one, and kind of did as little as possible throughout. And then for the refills, we kept the refills at the same price. We didn't escalate those, which worked out really well. And fortunately, we had enough margin on those that we could do that. And the other big thing with those is that they fold flat and they ship really small. So the freight didn't affect them as much so as the litter boxes. The litter boxes are big, so all of them hit dim weight, and we can only fit a certain few per container. So we get a 40-foot HQ container, and we can only fit about 550 of our largest litter box in them.
Okay.
So it just directly affects the scale of pricing for that. So that's where we did most of it.
And I think it's just to double click on the idea too that you did have a premium product. It's a one-time purchase.
Exactly.
That did help. I think that's super helpful. And then when you decided to outsource, have you always outsourced your fulfillment?
So we outsourced from the beginning because Shopify at that time had 2 logistics partners. They weren't, I don't know if they were partners, but they listed them on the website. There was Shipwire and Webgistics, and we had equally awful experiences with both. And then we decided to bring it in-house for a while. So we originally we had our first office on Fulton Street, not so far away. And we had 350 square feet, so obviously we couldn't warehouse there. So a few years back, or a few years later, I think it was around 2012 or so, a new development started happening in Brooklyn, in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And now it's called the Industry City. Back then it didn't have a fancy name, and it was just a bunch of dilapidated buildings and a little scary to walk around. But we were able to get a 5,000 square foot space, and we decided to give it a shot on our own. And we were, me and my partner were unloading containers and prepping orders, and it was great and awful at the same time.
Yeah.
We learned a ton about how it all works and why 3PLs work a certain way, and it really enlightened us to make it a better process going forward. But we did for about a year, and then we were like, this is not a tenable situation. Yeah. So we went back to 3PLs, and we had been with the same one for about 6-7 years or so, and then just recently switched to Ship Hero.
Excellent. And with that switch, what were some of the cost analysis there? Was it the flat rate pricing?
Yeah.
Across what was kind of the?
Yeah, going back to the whole dim weight thing, because of that, we had 4 warehouses with our old 3PL, and it was really difficult to keep inventory in all 4 warehouses. So that was taking up a ton of our time, just figuring that out and ordering properly for all of the warehouses. And so knowing, first of all, that you guys did load balancing, that was a huge thing for us. And then on top of that, when we shipped, if we didn't have inventory in California and something had a litter box had to ship from New York or from Texas or wherever it shipped from, it would go from being $18 to ship it to $40-something to ship it. And that just wasn't a tenable situation for us. And so knowing that you guys did flat rate shipping was huge. And then on top of all of that, you also, which our previous 3PL wouldn't do, they wouldn't open up our boxes. Most of our boxes are like filled with air, basically.
Okay.
And if we upsell accessories, we want to be able to put them in the box. And we unfortunately had to ship all those things separately. So that was a third sort of, decision-making element of it, being able to do that.
That's excellent. And part of our software, I know, allows us to do that. We have custom routing rules, so to go to a custom packing station so we can open them up and put it in. So
yeah,
that's
with
great.
our previous 3PL, there were no rules and notes or any of that we knew of. And so we were finding that anything that we wanted to set up would kind of work for a while and then just vanish when a new team took over or something. So seeing the rule system, which I hadn't seen previously, but when we started working together, seeing that was just totally enlightening and like, why hadn't that been the case before?
It's a game changer.
So, yeah,
So
that was
instead of just
exciting.
having that institutional knowledge, there's actually some rules set around it. And I
Exactly.
think that's where it's kind of interesting to have Rich on the panel as well, because as someone who insources, who does this in-house, how do you leverage your software to keep costs down, whether it's with carriers or with the rules? Because you are the man in charge of making the software decisions across a lot of brands.
Right.
So what's the analysis there?
So we have hundreds of thousands of SKUs across 4 warehouses throughout the country. 1 in Idaho, 1 in Utah, 1 in South Dakota, 1 in Alabama. I guess back to the original topic, rising costs, how to manage them. Things that we're doing in addition to warehouse management systems, what we're trying to do now is, think about this. We're an umbrella company that brings in other founders' companies and takes over for you. So we're going to take that business, we're going to do regular website reviews, we're going to switch all of the businesses into a unified ecosystem of platforms, apps, and make sure that everything that's in there is useful and doing something necessary and at the lowest cost possible. And we're talking everything from Zendesk, Happy Returns, to Avalara, to Gorgeous in some cases. All of these, this whole ecosystem. So I think like the biggest thing from my point of view that we're trying to do to cut costs is to solidify our ecosystem across 4 businesses. So it's clean, so we know what everything is doing, so that we're borrowing pieces from each business to cut costs as much as possible. We can trade people back and forth. We have people going from one warehouse to another to help there by creating this very uniform sort of structure of back-end applications and building in automated warehouse management system across each business. We have now at 2 of our businesses, our warehouses are now running automated systems through ShipHero. At the other 2, we're actually doing paper pick and pack, which is
We're
like
trying to change that.
yeah, it's like
Needs to
we're
be
living in the
changed.
old days. Next month, I'll be spending 2 weeks out in Idaho to launch our warehouse management system. But all these little things that you can do across making these systems work well ultimately allow our people, because think about hundreds of thousands of SKUs. We have over 100 employees at our warehouses and working remotely to manage the business from an e-commerce standpoint. So I think that unifying the software and making sure that it's all there for a reason and functioning in ways that's beneficial to the businesses and can be replicated across businesses is huge for us, because we're going to possibly add more businesses every year.
So if you figure that out, let me know.
We're in the process. So we're at a point now where we have 3 of the businesses in Shopify. The 3rd business will be moving to ShipHero. We'll have Happy Returns, Zendesk like Avalar, like all those components are all going to exist at each business. And there may be like a few pieces that are unique to the business. They want to keep using them, so we'll allow them to do them. And then we also have automation tools like Matrixify and things that we can, do large edits to products with. But all those little things like help our team be able to turn product over faster and faster, because these businesses are what you might call fast fashion. Now, I would argue they're not like the fast fashion that we see coming from Shein out in China. We don't own the manufacturing. We're resellers. But by streamlining these ecosystems, it allows our employees to move quicker, to turn more inventory quicker, our models to get on live sales and sell stuff faster, get that inventory in-house, create the purchase orders. We know it's coming in. We can get it right into a bin. It can sell the next day it comes in. So in our case, it's speed. How quickly can we get all this done? How cleanly can all the systems be? We're doing regular UX reviews of our websites to make sure they're all in modern and appealing to people. Tons of data analysis going on, SEO optimization, just to name a few things, ways that we're combating the costs.
And Rich, when it comes to the cost of the shipping, especially with fast, like your margins, you don't have to say what they are, but like you have a premium item. Usually with apparel, like the assumption is there's not a lot to play with there. Are you doing free shipping as well? And
each business is still somewhat doing their own thing.
Okay.
So, once I'm interested to hear how you got people off of free shipping and started paying for it, because that's a challenge. We figure once we go free, you're done. It's hard to go back. How do you go back? Tell the customer you have to pay now. We've had to increase some shipping times recently. One way we're managing it is by, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to talk good about Ship Hero because I love Ship Hero. And one of my roles at the company is to manage specifically all the warehouse software functions. But we can rate shop amongst all our carriers. So we just added a couple new carriers, and we're going to just use them when we want. And we have special rules for if we're shipping locally versus far away. We have rules for the weights, and UPS obviously has flat rates up to 50 pounds and things like that. So we're gonna, we're just gonna use the systems to maximize or minimize our shipping cost whenever possible in as much of an automated way as we can.
I love that. And I think it's the idea with the fuel surcharges that are happening right now is keeping anything, zone 1 to zone 4 by leveraging a network in any way is just so key. Because if you're going zone 5 to zone 8, you're just going to get crushed.
Yeah.
Like it is untenable.
Well, I think the biggest thing is inconsistencies and not understanding what those charges are going to be. And as a third party to that, we don't have any insight, or we didn't have any insight into that. And so with the flat rate shipping, we don't care.
Yeah.
And it just makes it so much easier for us. It's nice to offload something,
Absolutely, because when you have a partner that's doing it at scale, we have someone
Exactly.
that just watches that daily.
Yep.
That's like their whole job is to, maximize and make that as efficient
Yep.
as possible. So one of the other things that I think is become such a drain and an expense is returns. So we talked a little bit on the apparel side, but I know that you're doing some interesting things when it comes to refurbishment and returns and donations. So can you talk a little bit about how, because this is, it touches on the cost.
Yeah, this has always been a problem for us because our products, the nature of our products is you cannot resell as new a product that's been returned. If another customer sees that there's a cat hair from somebody else on it, it's a deal breaker, or sometimes worse. So you don't even want to go there, right? So when we were warehousing in our own facility, we would get the returns there. And even when we weren't doing the warehousing, we still had all the returns coming there, and we could refurbish them and resell them on eBay or some used fashion. But when we decided to go all 3PL, we had to figure something else out. And so having you guys open the boxes and inspect them, and it wasn't a tenable situation, and it just would never work. So the only other option was to destroy them all. And it's so infuriating to have to do something like that. So one of the things that we've come up with is having the customer donate the product to any 501c3 or a shelter, or anybody will take it and use it for something, so that it's not going to waste. and there's no reason to ship it back, because we've always charged for returns. We do a $10 flat rate return fee, and at first I think people were against that, but I think it became a little bit more normal, and people didn't really get annoyed by that. But for us, if they'll just find a good use for it, we're much happier with that.
Absolutely, when it comes to the sustainability part and just
Exactly.
kind of creating that waste.
Yep.
So, and then when it comes to, that's cool. When it comes to, Rich, when it comes to fast fashion, sometimes they get a bad rap with how much, like the returns can get really high.
Well, I like to think we're not fast fashion. Again, it's 4 brands. I say that because we don't
'Cause you go fast.
restock a lot of items. We get them in, we sell them, we try to find the next hot thing that's coming out, right? We allow returns. In some brands, we charge for we charge for shipping back for all the brands. We don't do exchanges yet, which is something I want to implement, because obviously that'll cut down on the total loss of revenue from returns. If we can use the system like Happy Returns to do it automatically creates a product in Shopify, it automatically does it all. Our customer service teams can pretty much just click a button and be done with it, restock that item, scan it back in, you're done. What was the question again?
just
We
how
hate
you
returns.
how you are handling it, and any of the costs, if you allow them, and if you do charge the customer for them, or how that
Yeah,
so I
we
think
charge
that-
for shipping back. In some cases, they even have to print their own label and pay for it. But we're working on kind of streamlining that. Like what I was saying before about unifying all of our systems and processes, part of that is to come across a consistent return structure across all our brands. Right now, it's kind of all over the place. But we're working to analyze what's working, what's not, and who has the best return on investment for returns, because we have all of it happening.
Got it. Okay. So I do want to talk a little bit about the transparency with your providers, like whether, I think you use Flexport to bring in. How has that changed, like how you import products, how you manage costs on that? Because you can actually see them now. You're not getting them 60 days later.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. I mean, we just started using Flexport when we switched over to you guys, so it's a new feature for us. We were using a freight company for, I don't know, probably 8 years previous to that. And their support was very strong, but we never really saw that much. Our supplier would basically book a container, and we would send them a PO, they would book the container, and then it would ship. And we never really got much into it, and that was fine for many years until the pandemic hit. And when prices started going haywire, we were like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, containers were taking twice as long to 3 times as long as it normally would. So, when prices go up and it takes longer to get something, there's just no way to make money on it. And because we still have to pay those previous services. We have to pay the supplier, we have to pay the shipping company, we have to pay customs. But we didn't even know where it was, and we would ask for reports, and it would take days to get it and whatever, and it was just, it was a mess. And so with Flexport, we're able to see, and it's a little too good sometimes. I feel like they're putting it all out there, but then the data's not as up to date as it needs to be. And so we're constantly pestering them about, okay, your ETA says this, but it hasn't reached us yet. And and they're at the behest of whether or not there's enough chassis and all this stuff. And so it's just like we've got insight into what they're putting up with now, and we have a better sense of what's going on, and it's good and bad.
Yeah, sometimes it's scary to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
Yeah, and
definitely
so
true.
we try to convey that to our customers, and they don't really, they don't want to hear it, obviously, but we put a message about the supply chain issues on our website and made it a big feature so that, because we were just hearing constantly from our customers about particularly our refill items, the liners, because without the liners, the litter box is kind of useless.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. Oops, sorry, but it was just totally out of our control,
So they were upset, but you did have the banner. Anything else you did, like when you got it in, did you give them an extra one, or how did you? Or just customer service just get
so we
crushed?
had, we have a feature on our website where you could sign up if something's out of stock and we'll notify you. So we were always really good about that. But then we would have like 30 or 100 of something would show up in the warehouse, trigger that email, send it out, and we'd have a backlog of 1,000 people, and they would be gone in 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And then the cycle happens again, and so the customers were just getting really PO'd.
I'm sure, yeah, it's tough. It's one of those things. It's not like not getting your dress in time. You definitely want your
I don't know. That could be a pretty sticky topic, depending on what the event is.
You've seen those complaints. Okay, so how about you, Rich? When it comes to like when freight was coming in and everything was delayed, how were customers, or did they not have as much visibility because you're not posting it yet to show that it's even available?
We're not posting it, yeah.
There's no pre-sale.
Right.
Okay.
Until it comes in the warehouse. Then we might set up the Shopify product and such and be ready for it, but we're not actually activating it on the site until it comes in. So, but what I can say, and just general, around how to manage customer satisfaction, no matter what's happening, whether it be costs, et cetera, is we have great teams of customer service people who just make our customers feel good.
Yeah.
It's just,
It's so important.
My role, one of my roles is to support all those folks and all the tools they use so that they can feel good.
Yeah.
And if we can cascade that feeling of, you look great, you feel great across everybody, it plays out great. And then when you have a loss, when your customer's upset about something, we had a big problem. We actually sent a bunch of emails to customers at one point. But the fact that we reached out to them proactively, they actually liked it. They appreciated that touch point, right?
Yep.
So that's great. So we have a couple of minutes left. Over the last 3 years, you couldn't prepare for what was going to happen. So what are you guys doing for the next 12 months? Like, how are you preparing? Are you stocking up? I mean, container prices have gone down by a third. Labor's still tight, but that inbound is getting more acceptable.
Yeah.
How are you planning though? Are you still trying to stock up, or what's?
Yeah, all of the above. Mainly, we would normally around June or July start ordering for the holidays. Okay. This year we've done it much earlier, and so we've got a lot more containers booked. And unfortunately, most of those containers, because we're able to do load balancing with you guys, we were sending to Pennsylvania because at the time, the New York, New Jersey port was sort of more fluid than the California ports. And but over the past couple of weeks, we've noticed that that's not the case. So we've had 9 to 11 containers just sitting there, parked there for weeks. And just this week, they've started to open up. Okay. And so literally yesterday, today, and tomorrow, we're supposed to get containers. But long story short, we're just ordering like crazy, trying to get it. And we're happy that the pricing has dropped so considerably. So we're ordering like crazy and just trying to figure out maybe at some point we can get reintroduce free shipping and start to pep up the customers a little bit more. But we're seeing some great response from customers now that the inventory's back in. The sales are definitely picking up and getting back to pre non-inventory times, and it's happening really fast. So we're getting really excited.
That's good. Yeah. We like that. Rich, what are you guys doing?
We are more or less just maximizing every automation we can maximize. We're buying the styles that we know are hot, trying to find the next hot one. Automation. We're analyzing all the data, like where are our clicks coming from, how much conversion rate do we have happening, like all of these things together, improving our SEO. We're expanding our social media reach. So in a sense, we do things like, selecting different carriers. We added a carrier recently, and we can pick from 6 different carriers to get the cheapest rate going out. We can automate our warehouse, so we have to hire less people. All of these things adding, and then again, we're actually ramping up our influencer campaigns, our UGC, our loyalty programs. All of this stuff is going into play to basically drive more business to help mitigate, the additional costs and such.
That's awesome. Well, I learned a lot, and I really appreciate you both taking the time to do this, and I hope you guys got a little something from it. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, we're all going to be around for the cocktail hour. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.